The art of communication is the language of leadership. Welcome to Leadership Talks. In this talk I would like to talk about information and communication and how they both fit into a change of behavior and change of mindset. I think this is very important because from my experience a lot of managers and leaders think information and communication is the same. And on the other hand side, I found that communication as a continuous part of change management is highly underestimated and not fully understood. In this talk, I will show you the difference between information and communication, and I want to show that how both fit into the management of crisis and the management of change processes. If you think about change processes, you always find that there is a certain amount of change of behavior or change of attitude necessary. Let's start with information. Information as a management tool answers the question what. So it deals with facts, numbers and specific details I want my employees to know. Information answers the question, for example, what is the number of total infections when you think about the corona crisis? What is the number of recovered people in total? What is the death rate? Which rules and restrictions do I want to imply? And so for information as a tool that deals with facts, I choose the metaphor head. And if you use it right, people will reply with I understand what you say, or I understand what you mean. But keep in mind, if people say I understand what you mean, or I understand what you say, it does not necessarily mean they will change their behavior or they will follow you. So that's why it is important to distinguish information from communication. And communication, as we will see in the next chapter, is that what you need to make change really happen. So it is nothing wrong about information. As a leader, I need to be transparent and reliable, and this I can do by choosing facts and numbers. Clear facts can take away speculation and fantasies and calm down employees in a crisis, for example. But when we come now to communication, this is what you need to move people, to change people's behavior. They won't change it only on the basis of information. And if you want people to leave their comfort zone, you have to use communication. And in every change management processes, and especially in crisis, people have to leave their comfort zone. If you think of Corona, you see how important certain behavioral changes are necessary. Keeping a distance, staying at home. So communication is needed to answer the question why. Why should I follow you? Why should I follow your instructions? Why should I change my attitudes or my behavior? Communication is the answer to the why. And if you use communication in a good way as an instrument along change processes and along crisis, people will say, I do not only understand, which is information, but I will also follow. I will be with you. As a communicator, you give personal messages. You give maybe also your own concerns. You give good reasons for a behavior you want to go for. And you explain why something is needed, why something is important to do. Communication you will use not by mail or by video, if ever possible. You will use a personal dialogue. You will meet people face to face. that's where you can have the greatest power in communication, in face-to-face communication. In Corona pandemic, we learned that we are not always able to give communication in a personal way. So there, video and using digital media helps. Keep in mind, information is about telling, communication is about selling. It is two-way. Communication is question and answers. And in literature and in history, we have very good examples of great communicators. For example, if you think about the speech Mark Antony gave to the Roman people after Caesar's death, this was a communication which you still can read today, and is a very good example of how he moved. He moved the people, the audience, that they agreed that Mark Antony should persecute the murderers of Caesar on behalf of the Senate and the people of Rome. And another good example is Shakespeare. When you think of Shakespeare's play Henry V, the speech he gave in the morning before the Battle of Agincourt, that is a very good example of personal communication that moves people. And as far as I know, Churchill was inspired by this speech of Henry V in his famous Blood, Sweat and Tears talk when he spoke to the English people in the Second World War. If you use communication in a good way as a leader, you will reinforce trust and confidence in your people. In order to make change happen or change of behavior happen, by using good communication, you need to be open, authentic, approachable, and decisive. And doing so as a leader, you connect to the heart of the people, you see in the picture, not only to the head. So you get head and heart with information and communication. And with good communication, you meet people's concerns and fears, as well as their hopes and expectations. You meet they're willing to commit to what you say or to what you want, and they are willing to give ideas needed for a change process. In the following, I will give you some rules and some best practices for good communication, but I will do it in a short way because on communication I will do an extra video, especially on communication strategy and how it is used to reinforce and a change process in general. First of the 9 rules I will give you is commit to communicate as a leader. Be upfront, give bad news, and bad news as information is better than leaving people to speculate on things. So commit to really communicate and use valid information to do so. The second thing is be direct. Prioritize according to the relevance of the audience. So try to understand what the audience is expecting from you. Try to understand their concerns and their fears and address that in a direct way. That's the second thing. The third thing is be open, honest in what you say, and give a disclosure of facts, especially information about, for example, losses, downturns, bad press, and so on. And that is important, that people trust in what you say. The fourth rule would be communicate throughout the whole change process. This is highly misunderstood by managers. A lot of managers think they have to give a speech and good reasons in the beginning of the process, show up maybe in between a couple of times, and that's it. And that's wrong. That's the reason why a lot of change processes fail. because an ongoing communication is missing. And it's not only talking to people, it's an ongoing communication based on a strategy. It is, as I can say as a consultant, it's really work. And as a leader, if you have to run an important change process, choose at least 60% of your time to develop a good communication strategy with your people or with a steering board you have, and communicate and be prepared to communicate to a great deal of your time. Don't turn too much into daily business work. It is important that you as a leader who wants a change shows up with a constant and good communication. The fifth rule or best practice you can use is make communication personal and personable. Practice number 6 is ask for ideas. This is very important because then you invite people to cooperate with you. Asking for ideas of the people, especially in a change process, is helping people to engage, helping people to be motivated, helping people to be part of the process. So whenever you can, ask for ideas. The second thing is suggest strategies so that people can relate to it, can discuss it, and can give feedback on that. Number 8 is, and that's important too, talk about something other than problems. Don't talk too much about problems. Talk about solutions, talk about options. And last but not least, number 9 is keep a positive attitude. Try as much as possible not to use irony or sarcasm. Use humor as much as you can, but always almost stay in a positive attitude. A comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. So let's talk about execution and doing as the third part of this picture. As I mentioned earlier, you get to the doing, to get to following you only by good communication based on good information. And as I said, information is not enough, but communication can help you based on good and valid information, will help you to go with your people through a change process or through a crisis. As I said also, it is very important to really understand that in a change process, and especially in crisis, people are asked to leave their comfort zone. People are asked to leave stable and over a long period of time learned patterns of behavior. And this will not change overnight. This will also not change over a couple of weeks. For changing behavior, you need a couple of years. For changing culture, you need a couple of years. And that's why communication is so important. Let me give you an example, a drastic example. In automotive industry, the automotive industry is undergoing not only a change process, it's a crisis, and it's a crisis in the end of identity. If you think about the fact that the automotive industry here in Germany lasts over more than 100 years. So over 100 years, engineers, good and brilliant engineers, have built up a pride in what they can do and what they can produce. And what they can produce until today are cars. It is iron on 4 wheels. if you think on the future, the challenge for the automotive industry is to organize mobility for a future society. And cars will maybe even play a minor role in mobility concepts of the future. And this is really an identity crisis, not only a crisis on changing structures and processes and changing products. It is also a very deep crisis of self-understanding, of what is my identity as a car builder and what is my identity in the future when I no longer maybe build cars. And this is something I really can understand. It's very hard to do. And interestingly enough, if I look at papers and advertisements, I see that they praise and show their cars they are able to build, and much later they show what I would call future products. And so I see with a lot of sympathy how these people are hooked to the past and polish the past still. But this will have to change. And for that it needs good leaders who can address the fears, address the concerns, address what is needed to give away and make people follow into that future of mobility for a society. This is for me a great example of how change management is really a challenge. Also, the corona pandemic is a good example for change behavior or change management or crisis management. This kind of crisis is new. It is all over the world. It is all over industries. It's about every person in the world. And there are no used recipes politicians might use from the past. It is going into something new, and at the same time I don't know what the new in the future will be. It has to be developed, mostly by trial and error. And the challenge for politicians is here to keep people on board, to help people to understand the importance of some rules. And what I observe right now is after the restrictions are loosened a little bit three weeks ago, right now a lot of people tend to go back to their used behavior, and that shows me how stable and how solid these used and learned patterns from the past are. It's not easy to overcome. And again, this is an example why you need a continuous communication in helping people to overcome old and unnecessarily or dangerous patterns of behavior. So in drastic change and in crisis, you have to deal first of all with strong emotions. Emotions of fear, desperation, resistance, and so on. And you can see it in organization as well as in a society around the corona pandemic. You also have to deal with established fixed mindsets of people. And with the need to show a new and not yet learned behavior, which is in other words urging people to leave their comfort zone, as I said before. So what do people need from their leaders in crisis situations and change situations? First of all, they need a continuous communication. I mentioned that a couple of times before. And this includes facts, which is information, by the way. And that helps people to build up trust and confidence, first of all. And also build up the willingness to follow and change their behavior. And Exemplary behavior, as the second thing, you should use as a leader as a role model. You should walk the talk. The third thing is you have to give people opportunities to learn and to practice new behavior. And you have to accompany that by praising every progress on that way. And in the end, you have to give credit for improvements. And as I said earlier, I will give an extra video especially on communication and how to build up a communication strategy. So that's what I wanted to talk about on information, communication, and how both fit into execution and doing. And in the end, I will reinforce again, a lot of managers want to jump from information to changing behavior. And that is, as I mentioned before, that is not possible. And I think if you followed this video, you understood that communication is key, information is necessary as well, but you need to embed a solid information into a communication concept. And bear in mind, doing that is real work and needs consideration and time. Thank you and goodbye.